Hello and welcome to the Green Voice podcast. I'm Grant Ervin from S&B USA here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, coming to you from the Center for Media Innovation at Point Park University. We have Wayne Gaines on control, and today I have with me Patrick Linden.
Hey, Grant.
How are you, Patrick?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Coming to us from Pitt, Ohio.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's we're great to have you here, and interested to get caught up and see what's going on about you and what's happening with Pitt Ohio Express, one of the great companies here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We've had Justine on in the past and Talkie, and so it's great to have you join us here on the Green Voice and talk to us and get us caught up with all the great things happening at Pitt, Ohio.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's exciting to be here. Kind of standing on the shoulders of giants with Justine and Talkie, right? They've done so much for our sustainability program. But yeah, I'm Pat Linden. I'm our sustainability specialist, kind of our first time fully dedicated employee to sustainability. And so many organizations, sustainability is important, and you kind of just pass it around to who has bandwidth. But
Sure.
Sustainability, innovation, it's all baked into Pitt Ohio's culture. So they were like, it's time to bring someone on, and it's been hitting the ground running. I've been here for about a year, but
Okay.
there's so much happening in the transportation industry. Pitt Ohio has had such a long journey with sustainability that it's kind of makes my job easy talking about all the success that we've had, but we're really kind of excited for the future of all of this and kind of navigating
Nice.
the new technologies and everything that's kind of on the scene.
Well, before we dive into that, I'm just curious about you said a couple of things there that really piqued my interest. You're new to Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, been here 2 years. Great city, though.
Great city. So tell me a little bit about your origin story and what were you doing before you came to Pitt, Ohio, and how did you come to Pitt, Ohio?
Yeah, cool. Thanks. Don't get asked about your origin story as often as I think.
Yeah, just to give you a context, I'm fascinated about it. A lot of our listeners always ask, because folks are always interested in how they get into sustainability, right?
Yeah.
You have a lot of folks that are sustainability practitioners, whether it's at home or inside of their company, but like this growing in the profession of sustainability is something that I have a personal interest in because of my background. But like, I'm curious to learn about yours. Like, how did you get into it, and
Cool.
how did you come to Pitt Ohio Express?
Yeah, well, thanks for asking. I mean, my journey with sustainability is pretty organic, honestly, how it started.
Unintended, organic, and
Yeah,
sustainability.
sure, there you go. In high school, it was kind of, you have to pick a major before you go to college kind of thing. And a great teacher who was big on, my AP environmental science teacher. She was also my biology teacher in the early days. She's passed away now, so rest in peace, Miss Lauer. But they called her Flower Lauer because she was so gung-ho on like recycling and everything. And just felt like, wow, there's a lot going on here. This is a big field, but, so it kind of was like a good fit. But then at home, we had...
Where is home?
Home is DC Beltway. So
Okay.
I'm from the DC suburbs there. Grew up in Maryland. Great state of Maryland. DC's a good city too. But we... I was always big on just flipping the lights off at home. It's little things like that. Hey, this saves money. This saves electricity. And it's just small things that little seed kind of really grew for me.
So it wasn't your parents telling you to do that. You were the one like, hey, Mom, Dad.
Yeah, get it together, guys.
Get it together, right.
Yeah, come on, flip the lights off. No one's in here, flip the lights off, right? So those small little actions have always kind of stayed with me, and it's really developed into a career. I went to University of Maryland and became a government contractor after that. It's kind of what you did in that area.
Yeah.
Go to your local college, go work for the government.
Were you in College Park?
Yeah, yes, I was.
Okay.
Go Terps.
Go Terps,
Yeah,
alright.
so it's been a rough few sports years for us, but it's a good school, and really got into it. Great professors there. I was doing environmental science, eco-technology design, did a bunch of I got a minor in business. So these kinds of things all sort of connected for me. It was sustainability is a environmental measure, it's a cost-saving measure, it's a pro-business measure, and Pitt, Ohio really understands that. I mean, that's been around since the beginning. I think when you look at the transportation industry, it's all about efficiency. There's so many moving pieces that you can't afford to be wasteful or inefficient. And so I think that was kind of a natural fit for why they kind of brought me on board to kind of not only help us tell the story, but help figure out the strategy.
And so leave University of Maryland, go into government contracting, you said?
I actually first went into construction. It was I was
Nice.
an environmental site manager, OSHA kind of guy.
Okay. Safety.
Safety, but
Okay.
also primarily environmental remediation. A
Hmm.
lot of buildings that were going up, high rises, cool apartments that the DC area was growing a lot at the time,
Yeah.
and kind of dredging up the past, literally digging through these
Sure.
old areas. There was abandoned gas tanks, underground storage tanks, contaminated water, just because 100 years prior there weren't those kind of environmental regulations. You could just dump things or
Yeah.
abandon your gas your gas station, right? So spent a lot of time on site outside,
Okay.
6 a.m. and three degrees
Yep.
with the wind chill. So yeah, really. But it was a tough experience for sure. Did that for about 2 years. But
Vertical construction or civil or.
it was civil. It was
Okay.
civil because we mostly left site after the excavation was finished, after the
Okay.
foundation
Yep.
was, and there was, then it was just building up. We would, maintain and monitor, but a whole variety of things. But actually, ironically, that's kind of where I started working with truck drivers. Was we were hauling contaminated and hazmat waste off of site. So I really
Interesting.
got to be working with our truck drivers closely, which I kind of now am also doing in a
Okay.
different sense. But so that's kind of been a cool full circle thing. But I just always recommend, field work can be tough,
Yeah.
but it's such a valuable experience.
For sure.
You really learn about
What matters, what doesn't matter.
exactly.
Exactly.
And why a project gets held up. I think it's easy to bake in delays as like a project manager and say, well, let's bake in an extra 3 weeks for this or 6 weeks for that. And it's a smart idea.
Yeah.
But having the context and understanding of why you should be doing that, right? Like,
Yep.
and seeing whether it's a supply chain delay or equipment malfunction, et cetera, that kind of thing really can open your eyes and make you a successful project manager and just help you plan for externalities and unexpected outcomes.
That's amazing. And then so you leave construction. I want to dig into that later
Sure.
because I come from the construction industry and civil, and one of the things that talking with, just like you're saying, like our PMs and our field engineers, on whether it's like waste management or safety, is you just get a real sense and feel of like the activation of strategy. And it's like important to kind of build
Yeah.
from the bottom up too, right?
Yeah.
Like you're able to kind of get those real operational impacts and how things play out in the field.
Right.
What's so you go from construction. What was next after that?
So I had actually interned when I was in college at the University of Maryland at the Department of Energy as a contractor there. So reached back out to some old colleagues and they brought me back on board as a contractor for the Department of Energy.
Mm-hmm.
Great experience. I mean, I was there for about 6 years. I worked on all sorts of projects. Still pretty recently worked with them, so I probably can't get into too many details.
No secret stuff. No
No,
secrets.
nothing top
No.
secret,
Okay.
but there's great lab personnel at the Department of Energy. Some of the smartest scientists and PhDs you'll
amazing.
ever meet. Yeah. So, yeah, hoping that organization continues to do the great work that it does.
Now, were you doing stuff, buildings, nuclear, national labs, like?
Blanket statement: renewable energy and
Okay.
energy efficiency.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
And then what like brought you to Pittsburgh and Pitt, Ohio?
So we when COVID hit, I feel like COVID is such like everyone goes. And COVID was
The
sort
pivot,
of
the
yeah,
pivot.
it was the pivot point.
Yeah.
We were kind of working from home. We were paying these DC rent prices, and we were saying, "Man, this is crazy."
Right.
My fiance, her family has like a little cabin out in West Virginia, so we said, "Hey, let's hunker down there."
Okay.
And pardon the pun, we got into the dirt there.
Yeah.
Like we did farming as kind of because you're sort of in the middle of nowhere.
We're at West Virginia.
The Eastern Panhandle. I don't know if you know
Yeah.
Berkeley Springs.
Yeah.
Really great little shout out Berkeley Springs. Great cute
Okay.
little town. But we were there for a couple of years as well. Just learning about ourselves, learning about nature in just like the purest sense, right? Like,
Sure.
and that's kind of our background as well. I mean, so sustainability covers a lot of areas, like at Pitt, Ohio, right? Like safety, security, technology. But my background is really environment and renewable energy kind of thing. So,
Okay.
I think, and that's kind of building on the field work. Definitely get outside and garden and,
Sure.
and farm if you get the chance.
So you start to inch your way westward. So
Mhm.
you're in the western panhandle of West Virginia.
Yes.
And then you hear about this great place, Pittsburgh.
Pretty much.
Okay.
I mean, pretty much. We said, we're living at your parents' house. We probably can't do that forever. Let's go and explore. And Pittsburgh just seemed like we went around to a bunch of places because we had that flexibility, which we're really lucky to
Yeah.
have. And we kind of landed. Pittsburgh seems like a place where change was happening. move, like this city has reinvented itself multiple times,
Sure.
but it's such a storied city, has all these great companies here that have been, U.S. Steel, Pitt, Ohio,
Yep.
shout out all of these great colleges. So it says to me that this is a great place that can reinvent itself, can innovate in a time where, things are changing fast.
There's a certain dynamism about the
Yes.
region, right?
Yes, definitely. And just kind of also shout out Pitt, Ohio a little bit. Just like it is quite a dynamic place, and even like innovation is something that we really do and work on at the office level. But it also happens with our truck drivers. I mean, it's dynamic out there. I mean, it's one of the things we do is like when you first start at Pitt, Ohio, is you go out on the road with one of the drivers,
Yeah.
and it's a great experience. You got to learn how it all works. It's a tough job, and so I think
Sure.
it's a good humbling experience if you don't have to be out there all day.
So you're in the rigs.
You're in the rigs,
Okay.
and great guys are telling you about their routes and everything, and it was just a great experience where we had to get something at 3 o'clock, and we were an hour and a half early. Everything had gone smooth that day, so driver Joe calls driver Sam and their dispatcher, and they rework the whole system to make more efficient pickups. And it's like,
Wow.
great, that stuff is happening on the field day to day, and it's like, talk about dynamic, talk about innovating. Innovation gets this whole like, I don't know, I feel like that word is so, it can be overused.
It can be overused.
But
Sometimes it's just simple problem solving,
yeah,
right?
simple problem. Like, how can
It's
I?
not a piece
Yep,
of technology or a widget or a gadget all the time.
Totally.
It's it might be a guy or a gal in a truck like coming up with a solution to a problem. Right?
Totally.
Being in, we'll talk about that. I'm curious.
Yeah.
Like, so do you come to Pittsburgh first or the company first?
Pittsburgh first.
Okay.
And then I said, I know there's great stuff out here. I want to be a part of this scene. And it took me in. I mean, Pittsburgh's been really good to me. I've been at Pitt, Ohio for over about a year now.
Okay.
And the company's really not only made the transition easy because they support me personally, sustainability is embedded to the company.
For sure.
So it's not like I'm having to make a sales pitch every single time. I mean, it comes up from the leadership. So
Yep.
I'm just a part of the mission, rather than a...
What's that like for you? Both. I think I'm curious. Both from coming to the city, but also coming to, after leaving like a mega entity like the Department of Energy, and then coming to, a great company like Pitt Ohio Express. What's that like to come in midstream where you have, folks like Justine and Talkie and all, Jim and all the way going up to like the leadership with Chuck Hamill? What's that like walking in the door and to places where strategies and things are moving in the right direction already?
Mm-hmm.
Is that assuring, or what's that process like for you?
It's definitely assuring, exciting, and it can be overwhelming too. It's like, wow, we've got a lot going on, and because sustainability touches almost every area of the business, it's
Right.
We can find our plate, and Justine and I, our plate very full, very quick,
Sure.
right? So just prioritizing and planning, that's so important in all aspects of transportation, but then also being able to pivot too.
Yeah.
So having that dynamic, I think people rag on the government because it's like bureaucracy, and to an extent that's true, but every company has bureaucracy. Publicly traded company,
Sure.
family-owned company like Pitt, Ohio. Not saying it's bureaucratic, but there
For
are
sure, you
there
have
are
processes.
stopgaps, right? But then when it's a go, it's a go, and
Yeah.
it's all hands on deck. And people work very hard at this company, but I think the reward pays off. And
Yeah.
it's been around for 45 years, and we're growing. That's another really kind of exciting thing that's happening is we're acquiring new companies, growing territories, customers. We're really starting to sell sustainability to customers, which I think has always been the nexus for me, is the crux is this is a business thing,
Yeah.
Sustainability, protecting the environment, however you look at it, it is a better business.
It's a value proposition.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you see? Talk to me a little bit about like your day to day. In terms of like your role inside the company. Like, what are some of the things that you're working on every day?
Yeah, we're busy. So I'm really grateful to take these kinds of opportunities because I do get to go to conferences and events every now and again and meet with people, which I think coalition building is huge.
Sure.
But that's kind of a sidebar. I think a lot of what we do. Me personally, Scope 3 emissions, right? That's
Ooh.
big, and I think we definitely wanted to.
It's a hot topic on the Green Voice.
Yes, it is, and because it's
I don't
complicated.
know any other podcast in Pittsburgh that's talking about Scope 3 emissions to the level that we are.
Be the first, be the spearhead, you're an innovator. That's good because it's it's worth being talked about because it's complicated. And it's moving, and I think those scope 1s and scope 2s are pretty much better defined, and
For sure.
and are regulated in a way that scope 3 emissions aren't. And so,
for listeners, maybe just so we don't get lost in that, what is a scope 3 emission for a Pitt Ohio?
Yeah, scope 3. So there's 15 different types of scope 3 emissions, but scope 3 is pretty much anything that happens outside of your operations that helps with whether it's your supply chain, it's upstream and downstream of your business operations. So, for example, this is another area that can complicate things is Pitt Ohio Transportation Company, our scope 1 emissions, our customers' scope 3 emissions.
Yeah, the fuel that you're burning.
Correct.
Right?
The fuel that we burn in moving freight is attributable to our customers as scope 3s, but they're also our emissions as we own them as scope 1. So,
wow.
It's dynamic.
Well, actually, that's kind of easy then for your customer, right?
It is. And we have taken a strong industry leadership stance here by realizing this early on. Our CEO many years ago said, we've got to be the greenest trucking company. They're going to start, eventually in the future, they're going to start trading on carbon. They're going to start comparing carbon as a competitive edge to other industries. So Pitt Ohio developed a carbon calculator that's patented, and it's top of class. So it does make it easier to...
Where you guys are tracking your scope 1 and 2, and then you're able to easily report that to your customers as what their scope 3s are.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And we're seeing an increased engagement with this. I mean, it's not huge right now. I would say 10 to 15% of all of our customers want these reports, and whether that's because they're European companies and they need to report it, or they just are trying to get a better information, better insight. Yeah.
I was going to ask about that. So, like the one you're saying, 10 to 15% of your customer base is requesting that.
Yes.
Requesting the scope 3 emissions. What is some of the drivers that are kind of pushing them? And you don't have to use any names.
Sure.
It's like there's probably like a sustainability HIPAA law or something out there in healthcare, but like maybe give an example of like an industry or not a customer name, but like the industry that customer comes from and why they're asking for that.
Yeah, I think as a blanket statement, usually the dirtier the industry, the more incentivized they are to do this. Like, for example, mining, let's say. There's some great mining venture capitalist teams that have actually come out here that we've met at CMU. They're really trying to do this all sustainably, but there are real limitations. I mean, if you're mining, you are drilling into the earth. You have an impact on the environment. Yeah.
So by its nature.
Exactly. So anything that those companies can do, I think they're more willing to seek those out than less intensive companies.
Is it because they're publicly traded or private equity or?
Well, so this is where the regulation piece kind of is still a little murky. So the scope 3s are not regulated, but the scope 1 and 2 are regulated by the United States Securities and Exchange Commission, right? SEC. So if you are publicly traded, you do have to disclose that information. And I think the idea is that so that investors know about your impact. I don't really think that I don't know that I haven't seen any inclination that they're developing like carbon markets that we can trade. I mean, obviously it's always talked about, but I haven't seen an inclination that the reporting is building up to that. So that's something to keep an eye on. But then on the scope 3 side, which are not regulated by anything yet, I think there's some California rules that might be coming out in 2027, and they're looking at it because it is way more complicated than the scope 1s and 2s. So regulation is a huge piece of why someone would or wouldn't. But what we work with, and what's nice, I think, for our customer base, the small customer base that is actively engaged in this, we give them like one-on-ones. I meet with customers once a week, and we like talk through strategy, talk through what's going on with their emissions, and so we can really. Pitt Ohio really looks at this as a waste product. Like if you want to remove waste,
your waste.
Yes, you want to remove waste from your supply, but it's also our customers' waste too, right? If you're removing waste from your supply chain in the form of carbon emissions, you're being more efficient because you're improving your MPGs and reducing the amount of fuel you use.
At S&B USA, our company, like the thing that we talk about, and part of the translation is that carbon equals cost.
Bingo.
when you are making that, because there's a whole audience out there where folks are like carbon, blah blah blah. What's I mean, like if you're in a sustainability space, like that's our language, right?
Right.
But when you're looking, and you just hit the nail on the head. When you're talking about fuel efficiency, when you're talking about the cost of fuel,
Mm-hmm.
these are things that like all of a sudden like the CFO's ears perk up or the
Right.
financial analysts perk up, and they're like, wait a second, you mean to tell me that we're spending X and we can reduce X -1 -2
Right.
that's the thing I think that really drives the conversation. Are you seeing customers that are starting to like push as you do like stakeholder engagement, that they're like, hey, what's Pitt Ohio doing here? Is there a way we can cut this a little there? I mean, is that an active conversation?
It is an active conversation, and I also think it really depends also on this customer, whichever customer's journey with it. We have some great customers like Parker Hannafin or PPG who are really well ahead of this, and they have a good understanding
Because they're more mature in their sustainability journey.
Yeah, I would say so. And so that they know we've become a known commodity and grown together with these companies, which is great. But it's also, for me, I do enjoy talking to customers who they have no idea what's going on. There was this one that I won't say what company, but it clearly had just been fallen into this logistics manager's lap. Like, you've got to figure out our carbon stuff. And he was like, oh, great. Yeah. So he's calling all of his carriers.
Call Patrick.
Right. And there's multiple carriers too. So it's one shipper who is our customer moving their shipping freight may ship freight with multiple other carriers who are our competitors. Yeah. Right. And so it is funny to see also along where they're talking with their other customers as well, or their other carriers, to see where they're at.
Walk me through that stakeholder engagement piece, because that's a topic it's like growing. Are you personally kind of doing that outreach, for Pitt, Ohio, or are you also like the recipient of those calls from your customers? Like, is it a two-way? Is it proactive on your guys' side, or how's that stakeholder shaping up?
It's two-way, but I would say on the proactive side, because another stakeholder as well is our employees and our company. They are, and I can kind of get into that maybe later, but these are also stakeholders. It's just our general community. That's a big part of our sustainability prop, is like where we work is where we live. And so we want our community to be bought in to what we're doing as well, and realize the benefits, not just for the environmental part, but the financial piece. And that's a really big sell that maybe an otherwise driver or diesel mechanic who's not as into the sustainability for the green reasons, they can very easily align with the saving money. Carbon is a cost.
Or the health side.
Right,
too.
The health, the benefits, that's a big part of Pitt, Ohio as well. So.
I always tell people that, the cleanest warehouse I've ever been in is the place you guys have up in Cheswick.
Yeah.
And it's because of the use of like electric motors with the forklifts and the microgrid that you have there. Like it makes for a nicer facility, like from a cleanliness standpoint, right?
Totally.
But go back to this, like the stakeholder piece, like you're reaching out to customer X, or customer X is reaching out to you. Walk me through that conversation. Like, what are you asking them? What are they asking you?
Okay, cool. I'll try and broad blanket this, because it does also depend on the customer too. A lot of times I am lucky enough where one of our sales reps or an account manager has actually brought to us to say, hey, we're getting some questions. Our customer is getting some questions about sustainability. We want you to meet with them. Great. I prioritize.
So the biz dev folks or customer relationships are bringing you the conversation.
Correct, for the most time. But then we also hold these summits and webinars to reach folks who hadn't considered, current customers that hadn't considered Pitt Ohio sustainability, prospective customers who are interested in sustainability, and then just the broad public who hasn't even thought about it. I mean, because another stakeholder is, and you might not think of it in the same way, is like competitors or other fleets that, like, I think of all the time with all these rules that are coming down, those mom and pop fleet operators who have 25 vehicles, right? Or 25, tractors. And it's like, they don't maybe have the resources to experiment with electric vehicles or explain these cost-cutting measures, on the carbon side, unless, so it kind of feels like we get to blaze that trail just for the good of it. And that's something
because they're your partners too, or because they're, I don't want to say competitors, but collaborators in an industry.
Yes, I think how our owner and his family have always seen this business is all boats rise. When we share information, it uplifts the community, the industry, and if competition breeds success. And I think if we're able to share where we've had success or warn others where we've learned the hard way, I think that is just a better way of doing business.
Is
altogether.
that a growing conversation in logistics trade associations and things of that nature?
I doubt it. I mean, I'm not in those conversations, but I doubt it. It's competitive. It's a tight market, and it's tough. So I doubt it.
Well, my question is more about sharing not so much like giving away trade secrets, right?
Mm-hmm.
But just thinking about the advancement of new technology. And,
Mm-hmm.
you guys are doing a lot of experimentation with and delivery. You're kind of beyond experimenting in some cases in terms of like vehicle electrification and charging. But are those conversations happening at like the macro level in terms of the industry?
I think so. I would think so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely a wait and see game right now with the electrics. New administration might change where funding goes. I also think there's horror stories out there. There's success stories out there, and we have both. I wouldn't say we have horror stories, but we have had electric failures, if you will. But we're moving forward. I mean, the whole process, and it's not just on the sustainability EV side, is a crawl, walk, run. I mean, we did that with our safety and our technology people. Like putting cameras on all of our trucks is a big one. And can I just do a quick PSA here? Like, I watched some of the camera.
The microphone is yours, Patrick.
Okay. Well, I've seen some of the videos that our safety guys put out there. People are driving crazy on the roads these days. It really is. And Pitt Ohio has a great safety rating. It's another thing we can sell to our customers, kind of wrapped into sustainability, because we're going to get your package from A to B safely. But, just drive safe out there, especially around trucks. Like, you may not realize how much weight and tonnage is on that stuff. Like, make good decisions. It's one thing that's kind of been interesting for me to learn about coming into transportation is like, okay, we serve our communities, we live it. Well, our communities are also the road. We've got 2,500 trucks out every single day. 20 hours a day. We've got to keep the road safe. You can help keep the road safe.
It's interesting. I've had the same experience in the construction space. Like a couple months ago, we have a project up on Interstate 81 that crosses over the Susquehanna River in northeastern PA, and I had the opportunity to be out with our team on the project on the bridge, and you just get a real respect for the folks that are doing guys hanging off the bridge doing welding work,
right?
And I think I saw a Pitt Ohio truck actually, zooming past, and that truck's going 75 miles an hour, whatever the speed.
65. They're governed at 65.
They're going at 65. I didn't have a radar gun, so it was definitely 65 now, I recall it. But you just have that interaction and the respect for safety. You had that in the early part of your career. I'm curious, what are some lessons that you've learned or could take from like that safety and construction experience that you apply into sustainability? Because I look at safety as being a couple steps ahead in terms of where sustainability needs to go, in terms of like the education and the day-to-day attention and those sorts of things, which the safety folks are really good at. Right.
I definitely want to answer your question about construction, but you hit on something that's so present with what we're doing. And our safety team, we're following basically a roadmap that our safety team developed about bringing the messaging, the training, the buy-in and engagement to the ground floor at all of our terminals. 25 terminals, so it's a lot of ground to cover, but they do it twice a month every terminal, right? And so we're following their lead in terms of how can we build out our sustainability training and engagement, because there's a cost saving element, because it's embedded to the organization. So yeah, you nailed it. Safety really is out ahead, and that's another reason we kind of consider safety and sustainability they're co-located.
They are.
And so when I think back to my time in construction, I have a funny, I mean, I almost died nearly 3 times, and that's just because it's dangerous.
Yeah.
And I was a single unit out there. It wasn't like a team of welders or a bunch of laborers. And so what they would do is like get these big excavators, right, and rip out just like the foulest contaminated soil you've ever seen. I mean, we're like off the charts gas and oil that has like decayed into half-lives. This is nasty stuff. So like, I remember one time, like, and usually if you got a good relationship with your excavator, they would be like, oh, that's the guy who's going to be walking around my vehicle while I'm ripping out tons and tons. So anyways, they would like pull up the buckets and I could scoop a sample and put it in or do a reading. But if you weren't careful, I'll never forget, same site, I like turned around and just excavator didn't see me. You're right, PB. He didn't see me. I didn't see him. It's just one of those things that happens. And I turned around and it just right in. I mean, I felt the wind on my nose.
Oh my god!
And I was like, oh, I would have broken several bones. I would have flew into a pit. So being mindful, being aware, you got to come to work focused and like ready to rock. And that's something that I have known and learned. But so has Pitt Ohio. I mean, that's one of the big things is, we want our drivers to be alert and focused. And so there's like a rainy day fund, where it's like basically a matching program for if the drivers put money away and save, the company will match that.
Okay.
We don't want our drivers out here having financial stress, which leads to all sorts of other indirect consequences. So we want our drivers focused, that kind of thing. So just like being on your game, you've got to do it. And like, I think that's especially relevant for people who are in the field who are operating equipment. So yeah, that's a huge one.
Huge opportunities there. Just we're coming around the corner here. A couple quick questions I wanted to ask you too. I mean, the culture of innovation at Pitt Ohio Express is, it's demonstrating what you see in the field, some of the stuff that you've talked about.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what are some of the things that you see up around the corner here? Both in terms of like the industry and opportunities in the logistics industry, but also things with Pitt Ohio Express. Like what are some things that you guys are looking to tackle in 25 and beyond?
Okay. All right. Yeah. No, cool question. I think let's just go right to the big pie in the sky stuff, since we are kind of out of time, or we're running up on time. Like, hydrogen is an exciting alternate fuel. And I think people really are trying to get in the game, get a ground floor on this. But, there was also, I think it's worth reminding people, 20 years ago, like the 2001, 2002 timeframe, there was a big hydrogen boom. Yep. And then really nothing, I mean, I should say nothing, but not much materialized like it did for the solar industry, right? Yeah. So, cautiously optimistic about hydrogen. I think that's kind of the unofficial stance of Pitt, Ohio, too. We'd love to see that stuff take off, but there's a disproportionate burden,
particularly for heavy equipment, right?
Oh yeah, for the Class 8 tractor trailers that are out there. I mean, that would be awesome. But I think there's a disproportionate burden maybe on the trucking, on the fleet operator, because okay, so we've been asked now if we were going to get a hydrogen vehicle, let's say, okay, we've got to pay $650,000 for a brand new vehicle, which is 5 times more than the diesel. Okay. Then we also have to pay, $3 a kilogram, which is, probably like close to $6 a gallon. Okay, now it's double the price of gas. And if we want to install any of our own infrastructure for fueling and charging, there's also that kind of green premium. So as exciting as the hydrogen industry is, there's real, and I bet you everybody on either side of your upstream downstream thinks that they have the disproportionate, but we do need, if we want these things to take off, there needs to be
they need to be able to get to scale, right?
Scale for sure, but also just like maybe realizing that I don't want to get slapped on the wrist for this, but like costs are going up. Everyone, if we do want to combat the climate crisis, climate change, costs are going up for everyone. And so I think maybe if we could all just come to that realization, take a deep breath, and then make the logical next steps, whether it's looking at resilience or what have you. So that's one, that's kind of the high in the sky, the big one. But, also alternate fuels, renewable diesel. That's a big conversation that's
Sure.
going on right now. Looking at like 60 to 70% emission savings
Which
without,
is a big win.
which is a huge win without sacrificing power. It's got almost the same energy content and power density as traditional diesel. Unfortunately, we had a supplier. Things were going really well. It's impossible to source that stuff out here. I mean,
It's very difficult.
It's only out in California, and the closest I've seen is like someone in Indiana is going to start making renewable diesel next year. So it's pretty tough. So we had a supplier. Things were going really well. But we couldn't get a great answer. We were going to swap our whole fleet over, at least for the end of 2024, so like a quarter. We were going to just
to test it.
Just to test it. And
Because it's a one-to-one connection.
Yep.
Yeah, that
and
makes it easy.
You drop in fuel, exactly. And they just didn't have a good answer for us on what happens in the winter weather, and we just couldn't afford to lose an entire terminal for a quarter if it froze. So
We just did a pilot project for a major program we have out in Fargo, North Dakota.
Okay.
And
talk about cold.
Talk about cold. It's like, literally like ground zero where you can do that sort of test.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a lot of great success in running it from like April through October.
Mm-hmm.
And then we recognize like, we're not going to try the winter.
Yeah.
Because we know what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
You can't sacrifice time in the schedule.
Right.
We're doing a lot of earth moving out there, and so like you can't sacrifice time in the schedule. But what we did see was that one-to-one correlation with the renewable diesel. I mean,
but isn't that like such a good testament of like working in the field, like seeing why, not just like hearing why this won't work, but seeing why it won't work, right?
Yeah.
And
being realistic about it, because the biggest challenge that like you see and you mentioned it about is the supply chain.
Yeah.
And like we were able to get that supply chain, question figured out, like a near term for the pilot, but then making it long term and durable is like the next horizon, I think.
Well, so to around the corner for Pitt, Ohio, we've got some really exciting stuff going on this year, but also keeping it simple. I mean, I'll kind of start with the keep it simple. We really emphasize our MPG improvement and performance, and we're rolling out this new program where we're really kind of get buy-in, not just from the leadership, but also from our boots on the ground guys. Like I think our drivers, I kind of joke like, hey, if you drivers can improve your MPG, you give us sales ability to prospective customers. Like you guys are salesmen, kind of like really give people like it can't be done without them. So that's like really empowering our employees to make smart and mindful MPG decisions is huge.
And that's a great thing to hear, because like what you hear is a lot of that type of problem solving and innovation on the front lines. Right?
Yeah.
Because they're the folks that are operating the equipment. They're like, well, why do you do it this way? We should do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of those ideas originate right there.
Right. And so building that relationship so that they feel that they say, hey, this could improve our sustainability. I don't know if someone in Indiana has a great idea, but I just haven't met them yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we can kind of talk. That would be cool. But so that's kind of the blocking and tackling of it. But some of the really exciting, more of like the high innovation stuff. Our Harrisburg terminal, capital PA, we have got a grant from the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, so shout those guys out. Yeah, we love it. And so that has really helped offset some costs. We brought 3 megawatts of capacity on, this additional 1 megawatt of backup
terminal
generator.
on 83?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And we are going to bring 6 new trucks in, 8 electric Class 8, so the big tractor trailers.
Wow.
3 Class 7 box trucks, and then we'll have additional capacity for an employee charging station, and as well as one of these yard horses that kind of moves trailers A to B without ever leaving the terminal. They're off-road vehicles. But what we have found is a lot of success with these off-road vehicles. We're cutting tons of costs in diesel fuels for equipment that needs to be running kind of constantly, but never really needs to leave the site. You know what I mean? So that is an area we're really looking at, kind of in a crawl, walk, run. But we're definitely, solidly slated for electrification right now, and we're just going to measure and do some data and see what happens. I think we're going to share a lot of as part of this award from DEP, we share our I think it's our state of charge, others like geotagging information with Penn State University. So all this information is to be public as far as I know. So really just kind of trying to do the experiment and hopefully find the best answer.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's exciting stuff, Patrick. One final question for you
Okay.
as a new person in Pittsburgh. I'd love to hear, what's like your hot food spot? Like
Oh, wow.
it doesn't have to be one, but
Yeah.
you moved to Greenfield?
I
Is
moved to
that-
Greenfield. Yes.
Okay.
A lot of houses. Don't come knocking and find me. Maybe you will. But anyways, we do live near Squirrel Hill. Lots of great Asian foods out there.
Yep.
I think I got to shout out Taiwan Bistro 33.
Taiwan Bistro 33.
I mean, come on, it's a classic. It's really good.
Is that on Forbes or Murray?
It's actually just past Forbes and Shady. So
Shady,
it's like, yeah,
okay.
yeah, by that Starbucks right there.
Yep.
On Forbes. So yeah, that place is great, but it's one of many. There's so many good food places in Pittsburgh. This belly, we were joking about this before, but this belly is only growing the longer I feast out here. So
Awesome. Well, welcome to Pittsburgh. Thanks for the
Thanks.
great work that you're doing at Pitt Ohio Express, and thanks for joining us today on the Green Voice.
yeah, thanks for having me, Grant. This was fun.
Awesome. Thanks for listening in, and we really appreciate you guys taking a moment out of your day to listen into the Green Voice and learn about sustainability here in Pittsburgh. I'm Grant Ervin from S&B USA. We'll check you out on the next episode. Thanks much and have a great day.